think it's like, let me phrase it like this. I think that, it's an evolution and it's a wisdom. And wisdom is neither right or wrong, it's personal, based on your own experiences. And I think when you're younger and, liberal as we both are or were, but I still consider myself that way, you trust yourself very little, you trust authorities and people that should know better very much. And as you evolve and you gain experience, you realize they don't know anything. They're not there for you. Their motivations are not, what they say. And you start to realize you rely on yourself more and more, and you do it in different ways. You start your own business instead of working for somebody. You decide to acquire skills, being a pilot or being able to handle a firearm responsibly or whatever. You start to realize that these people don't have the skills and they don't have the knowledge and they don't have your best interest in mind. And you can trust yourself for everything, ranging from personal protection to flying an airplane to taking care of your family.
Yeah, and I think that is where the shift comes in for, I don't want to say average, but say you're normal, everyday people. It's like there's this concept, part of it is it's what we're taught. There's this concept of, okay, we exist in a society and everybody is supposed to do their part. And you all eventually find out that that's not the case. Everybody doesn't do their part. The authority that you may depend on or you think is going to take care of you probably will not, and they will screw you more times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those are things that you hopefully learn early, right? And then you can do something about it.
I think that people don't fundamentally want the weight of personal responsibility. I think it's more comfortable to believe that you exist in a web and a network, that people are genuinely good, and the government and your municipal governments and everyone's got your best interess, and human nature is fundamentally a good thing, and there really isn't.
You find out, but again, I think when you're an entrepreneur and you either start a business or hire people, it's almost a straight shot for you to know all these things, because you learn so much more about people, and you have to accept certain truths about people. Your everyday guy or girl who clocks in and that's my opinion.
I look at it this. People are a gestalt of motivations with a governor on them, right? The governor decides what motivations will become actions, right?
Right.
Not everybody's got a good governor, right? And the governor is something that you keep working on. And there are people with dark motivations.
Right.
And those are going to get through. That will always be the case. And you got to ask yourself, what is going to stand on the other side of that? And I would argue that you are personally responsible for your family and for yourself and for your safety. Nobody else, even if they wanted to, can or should take that responsibility from you, because that's your responsibility. And I think that more than anything is why you have, why you have the right to bear arms.
It's all here. It really is. Just think about how we're nurtured and the things that we're taught growing up. It's like, again, you have, because like I know for a fact, even like when it comes to the economies of things, Social Security, I recently got all my four parents, my wife's parents, and I recently got them to apply for Social Security and all that. I know for a fact that what I'm paying in is what they're paying out to them. So, thank you.
You're so very welcome. I'll grab some syrup. I'll be right back.
So I'm almost certain that the government is not going to take care of me or my wife or my girls for retirement. So that's a responsibility that I'm taking on very early on. But again, you ask somebody else, they wholeheartedly believe that,
The glass is hot on that, so grab it by the handle, okay?
Thank you.
They wholeheartedly believe that, somebody outside of them or their family structure is going to take care of.
I would actually extend it. There's a certain class of people that believe others know better. That there's a magical authority and that there's a wisdom that's absent within themselves. And if you trust in the wisdom, you'll manifest it, right? And the right thing will happen. And so when these people, when things don't go the way, they just trust more, they double down, right? And you come to a certain point, particularly as an entrepreneur and certainly as a pilot, I'd argue every pilot's an entrepreneur. I mean, you're dealing with something far more precious than money. You're dealing with your life and the life of your passengers and how you conduct your business of flying, right? It's the ultimate entrepreneurship with the ultimate consequence. And I think, when you go through piloting and entrepreneurship and stuff like that, you're taught self-reliance. And then once you start believing that you're self-reliant, you're responsible, you inevitably end up being a champion of those rights that enable you to do it.
Like I said, I think depending on the path you choose to walk, you're gonna pick up certain things. There's so much in pilotage and being part of this community that reflects so much about life in general. Like I started, actually, I'm in the process of writing a book. I don't know when I'll ever, could be 10 years from now. And what I'm looking to do is just relate what I've learned being in this space, because a lot of it you can relate to life. And I do think when you start your pilot journey, there are going to be certain shifts in your mind, just like you said. When you're operating a machine like that, it's you. It's like ATC is not going to be responsible for anything you do.
Pilot in command of life and airplanes.
Well,
right? You're the pilot of your own life.
So why did you move here? Whatever you're comfortable with sharing. Why Wyoming? Because this is a far distance out of New Jersey or New York. Why here?
I moved to Wyoming.
How are you doing?
We're good. Yeah, thank you. I moved to Wyoming because first and foremost, it was absolutely nothing but nature in my mind. It had some, it has Jackson Hole and, nice things that a New Yorker or somebody from LA will appreciate. They get to play cowboy and it holds on to some of its history. But fundamentally, it was a very free place. It was a very natural, raw, beautiful place. Most of it is Yellowstone Park. I forget how much of the state is that. And it was a really great place to fly in. And it happened to have a community, Alpine Air Park, where you could, instead of a garage, you could have a hangar. And instead of rolling up your driveway with your car, you could roll up with your airplane on your taxiway. And you could live a flying life. And I wanted a flying night. I wanted a flying life and to be close to nature.
Is Alpine the only air park out here, or are there more? Or do you know?
I'm sure there are more air parks around here. Alpine is typically the one that's the most obvious success. It's attracted, both relatively, I would call low-income pilots, that will have just the hangar and a one-bedroom attached, and they just want to live this life, all the way to billionaires. We have a couple with, palatial hangars and homes and sprawling estates. You have a huge mix here of all level, but what unifies everybody is this fundamental love of flying in airplanes. We can all go into each other's garages and, the wealthiest amongst us are just as impressed by the lesser of us with the airplanes we fly and the skills we have, and it's a nice equalizer.
So one of the most commented line in like Mojo Group videos is, that the prices of aircraft is shot up since the pandemic, where you're paying even triple in some cases for even the level entry or entry level. So I get this all the time, like, hey, forget it. Flying has just become way too expensive for the average man.
There was a time.
Right. Maybe there was a time, at least since I've been in it.
Since you've been in it, no. It kind of died in the 80s, but in the 70s and 60s, a plumber would buy a 152 or a 172, pop his tools in the back, or her tools, or their tools, and go, to a variety of sites. I mean, there was a surplus of aircraft. There was a big boom in the 70s.
I heard insurance killed it, litigation.
Yeah, litigation was a very big part of it. That's a whole big discussion. But there's actually a lot of factors to it. And there is a solution.
Wait. So let me, before you, I want to get to the,
Yeah.
I was just giving you my take. But, because you just described the air park. Because to me, living in the air park, it is a lifestyle. And I don't think it's a lifestyle that the average, or what you would be able to, sustain on an average income. I don't even know what an average income is. But so when someone is looking at you talking about all of these things, they would either get one or two emotions, which is one maybe jealousy, envy. Another could be, motivation. Where they're like, I could do that. So what do you say to the guy or girl who already has a notion like, this shit is whack. It's just built for rich people. I could never afford this or whatever have you.
I'll stop you there.
Yeah. What do you say to that?
Whenever you say I can never, or it is absolutely like this, get some humility and realize you're almost certainly wrong. There are absolutely no absolutes. If there were, there would never be a successful entrepreneur, right? I mean, for every success, I can give you 3 absolutes that somebody could say why it couldn't be done. So you shouldn't, the first thing I would is stop at the root, with that. What would I say to somebody like, well, I could never afford that, or I could never do it, or it's for these people over there.
Right.
I would say, that's an unworkable attitude. Unless there's, demonstrate to me why you have this certainty. I mean, you could certainly say and be correct and say, it appears that the people there are very wealthy. I do not have that level of wealth, right? But that's a big jump to go, I can never. The simple fact is, there's multiple avenues to achieving anything what you want. And one of the most common one is monetary success. So that's the way we're built. Whether or not you like capitalism or private ownership of property or not, that is where we are right now.
That is America.
It is America, and it's actually, I would argue, it's the world. Some have more of a cultural touch, to the transaction, but fundamentally, everybody's capitalist now. And so I say to you, well, stop and take a step back and ask yourself, first of all, make sure you're informed, right? I can show you properties at the air park for, I could show you properties at the air park for the price of a reasonably nice suburban home in a metro area right now.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, well, what do you know about Alpine Air Park? It's all a bunch of rich people. Well, there certainly are some, but what about the people in the executive hangars? They're not rich people. If they were, they wouldn't be in the executive hangars. Well, what's the executive hangars? Interesting that you don't know. The executive hangars was originally built and developed for exactly that person. How can the person who loves flying, the common person who has a reasonable job and probably an aircraft that isn't fabulously ornate or powerful, but just has a real love of flying and wants to fly in nature? And the solution to that was the original part of this development were executive hangars and executive condos, which were nothing more than hangars with a little 1-bedroom attached to them. And the hangars weren't even very big. They were just for a GA aircraft. You couldn't put your big old jet plane in there. Now, if you had bought that, say, 10 years ago, like we're in a different situation right now,
Right.
it would have been the same cost as an ordinary home. And you can argue an ordinary home, but it would just be a choice of lifestyle. What are you giving up? Okay, well, you're not going to be right next to a Whole Foods, right? You're going to be somewhat isolated. You're going to be somewhat rural. But you'll have your plane at the ready, and you're going to have to change your life, and you're going to have to fly to those places when you want more of a city feel, or you want more people around you.
Right.
And so there are compensating factors other than this costs more and you got to be richer. There's, if you had elected for that change of lifestyle, you could have selected that executive condo. And if you had, interestingly enough, if you had just bought one of those 10, 15 years ago, I think it's appreciated over 300%. Those now,
I'm certain.
Those now are, I think, well over $1 million. So 1.3 million for that little one bedroom attached to a hangar, with the use of the airport that's in the middle.
Right. So that's part of it, is because I've thought about making a video just to talk about this in terms of affordability in this lifestyle. And if I'm being completely transparent, when I'm around, one thing that I've appreciated being part of this community is I get to meet other entrepreneurs. It's literally full of business people. And again, that's on one side, I like that aspect. But on the flip side, the people who, feel like they're knocking and want to get in, they don't feel like it's for them, and they feel like, well, I have to be an entrepreneur too. And I've also met folks who just have either a high income, they have a regular job but high income, and they can afford to either buy a plane or own planes with other people, which also is not talked about enough. Partnership, obviously that takes management. But my point is, everything you just said, just sort of own in even further on that. And I'm talking about right now,
So
2024.
let me address some of those things.
Right.
Okay. There's a lot of assumptions. If you look at this Alpine Air Park, a well-established, somewhat famous one, you're like looking at the Beverly Hills of whatever. And so, you can go to Beverly Hills and you go, oh, I could never afford to be in there. And maybe you're right, but you kind of take a step back and kind of look at it macro and go, do I want to be, or do I need to be in Beverly Hills? What do I want, right? So let's talk about a flying perspective. If what you want is just a fun, light aircraft, for doing jaunts in good weather, and you're not aspiring to take, massive numbers of people places or make money at it, and you would love a beautiful spot of earth that you could land that airplane, and you want a very humble but pretty, scenic little house. Maybe you want to put your airplane in a little barn that you'll build yourself, and you want to just a little house that you can stay in and live in and go in and out of your plane, and you're okay being a little bit far away from a big city or something like that. You can do that now, and it will cost you less than the most reasonable metro suburban house. The FAA lets you land on your property, okay? So exactly why do you need to land on this property at Alpine Air Park? Why do you need to live in Beverly Hills if what you want is to land your inexpensive airplane, let's call it a light sport aircraft, or an experimental even, right, on your lawn, right, or get a little...
and you have that. You have folks with...
It costs less than a car. It costs less than a Tesla.